Welcome to RonTape. At the outset of the movie, we witness a vicious act perpetrated by criminals in Odessa, Ukraine. They not only rob weapon carriers but also murder scientists and steal state-of-the-art AI weapons. After 2 days, Nathan, a government agent, was called to the office and we were greeted by him. As soon as Nathan reached his destination, Knighton assigned him with the mission of retrieving the AI weapon that had been stolen 2 days prior. Initially, Nathan declined the mission. Eventually, after Knighton elucidated the potential for destruction if this weapon ended up in the wrong hands, he consented to take on this mission. To ensure success in this mission, Nathan supplied a master secret agent to command his forces, Orson. Initially, Knighton declined the costly fee. Additionally, he put forth an extensive list of demands. Therefore, he suggested Nathan enlist John's services instead. Nevertheless, Nathan added that John was currently employed by their rival Mike. With few alternatives, Knighton at last consented and Nathan made his way to Africa to meet Orson, who was still recuperating there. Nathan articulated his intent, however Orson declined this firmly as he was still in recovery. After Nathan's explanation that the fee was extremely costly, yet related to global security, Orson finally acquiesced and they set off for Madrid, Spain with their mission at hand. When they arrived in Madrid, 2 individuals were already waiting for them. Sarah and JJ Davies are a dynamic duo, with Sarah's remarkable hacking skills matching the precision of JJ's sniper abilities in every way possible. Thus, Orson was compensated to enlist the help of these 2 individuals for his mission. To cut a long story short, they immediately went to the airport and managed to acquire the hard drive from Donald, the delivery man. Sarah stayed in the office to hack into the camera and guide her team with a microphone, while Orson and JJ took on different tasks, allowing them to work efficiently together. Davies, Jane, and Marcia kept a close eye on Donald's activities. Professionally, they monitored Donald's every move and would strike when he was at his most vulnerable. However, things weren't as simple as we thought they would be, since other teams were also vying for the hard drive. Unbeknownst to Sarah, the hackers had already managed to compromise Jane and Marcia one by one. With no reaction from either of them, Sarah became suspicious until she eventually realized that a malicious force was behind this manipulation of their camera. As Orson heard that, he became aware that John was the one responsible, who was working alongside Mike at the moment. Sarah quickly informed Orson that 2 assailants were approaching him from behind, having just conquered her own computer. Orson swiftly rushed out to apprehend Donald after managing to immobilize them. However, Mike's subordinates had already arrived before him and confrontation ensued. After their mission was accomplished, Nathan picked them up in his car. Unexpectedly, Donald suffered a heart attack at the same time they were being pursued by other vehicles aiming to take back the hard drive. Realizing that his life was coming to an end, Donald revealed the critical fact that he had no other option but to act as Martin instructed him. His wife was being held hostage. Despite this, the person who was intended to purchase the hard drive had not yet seen his face. Consequently, Donald requested Nathan to masquerade as him and travel to the Duchess in Madrid for an appointment with a customer. Donald begged his comrades to rescue his wife, and with a final plea he breathed his last. At that moment, they are desperately racing against the clock as Mike's gang is relentlessly attempting to pry open the car door. After Mike copies the data, he triggers a mechanism to unlock the car door. He quickly grabs a copy of the hard drive and leaves. Sarah reassures her audience that the microphone is secure due to its impossibility of use without a password. The only recourse available to Nathan is to adopt a disguise as Donald in order to uncover who obtained the hard drive. In the end, Nathan disguised himself as Donald to meet with the buyer. Sarah was able to recognize his face from a hidden camera and eventually discovered that one of them went by Ben Harris, a lawyer working for Greg Simmons, an illegal arms dealer mob boss. Orson was discouraged at the sight of this, as he wasn't positive that he could capture Simmons given his nimbleness and status as one of the top arms dealers in the world. Sarah quickly noticed that Simmons had a deep fondness for orphans and admired the work of artist Denny Francisco immensely. Eager to act on the opportunity, Sarah proposed they take advantage of it. As a result, they hastily returned to America and picked up Denny Francisco. In no time, they came and disguised themselves as Denny's new representative. Orson managed to escape from the scene and had a private conversation with Denny. Orson approached Denny for assistance with attending a charity event hosted by Simmons in France. Initially, Denny strenuously denied Orson's request. However, after being shown an affair video with his sister-in-law, he was unable to refuse any longer. Denny didn't want his reputation to be tarnished by the video, so he had no choice but to capitulate and obey Orson's demands. Instantly, the three of them sped away in a boat. Upon arriving at the cruise liner hosting the show, Orson and Sarah asked Denny to occupy Simmons while they searched for pertinent information. Without hesitation, Simmons spotted Denny and quickly approached him to start a conversation. At the airport, Orson and Sarah, who had devised their strategy, unintentionally spotted Mike's crew. Upon hearing the news, Mike's peers realized he was on the same quest for knowledge. Then, they separated and Sarah headed into one of the rooms to set up a microphone while Orson followed close behind. He proceeded to show off his impressive skills by defeating Mike's men with ease. Sarah was ultimately exposed by Ben Harris, yet she exhibited exemplary acting prowess to buy Orson some extra time. Orson, recognizing the other man's insignificance, seemed to be deliberately trying to outwit him. After Orson sent Mike's lackeys flying into the ocean, Sarah hastened to say her farewells in order to rendezvous with Denny out on the deck. Simmons beckoned Denny and Sarah to his lavish villa in Turkey, wanting them to experience firsthand the opulence of his lifestyle. Before long, Simmons' associates arrived and wanted to take a picture with Denny. Meanwhile, he quietly requested Sarah to be his mistress in exchange for copious amounts of wealth. Eventually, Orson showed up and demanded they all leave. As the scene shifts, Nathan and Jeej are revealed to be eavesdropping on Simmons' discussion with his business associate. In the conversation, it was revealed that the AI weapon would be sold for $10 billion. Most importantly, Simmons turned out to be only an intermediary because the original buyer's identity had not been revealed. During the morning briefing, they deliberated on who would be purchasing the AI weapon. With no other recourse, Orson courageously decides to break into Simmons' partner's home in order to steal the customer information. That evening, Orson stealthily infiltrated the house, armed with anesthetic gas. Leveraging Sarah's CCTV hacking prowess, Orson diffused the gas throughout room via air ducts. As everyone succumbed to unconsciousness, he rushed into the bedroom. By following Sarah's instructions, Orson was able to crack the safe and replicate all information found on the laptop. When Orson had finished, he stole all their money and jewelry to deceive them as if they were victims of a robbery. Just as Orson prepared to slip away, he was suddenly detained by two guards who were still conscious. Orson astutely pretended to be alarmed, thus deceiving them. Then, in that very moment, he outwitted the two and effortlessly vanquished them both. In the morning, they reconvened to evaluate and assess the copy from their previous night's work, yet even after a thorough search of its contents, they remained unable to discover what product Simmons was planning on selling. Not long after, they caught a chat between Simmons and someone identified as Qasim. Qasim revealed to Simmons that Alexander had been the victim of a robbery by an unidentified person the previous evening. After the investigation, it was discovered that the criminal acted alone and prevailed in a fight with two of Alex's personal bodyguards. Orson, who heard this information, kept his composure due to his anonymity. After numerous attempts, Sarah eventually obtains Qasim's precise whereabouts and identification. As it turns out, Qasim is a highly ranked Turkish political figure. Furthermore, Simmons and Qasim are due for an exclusive rendezvous in just 3 days. To reveal Simmons' true intentions, Nathan mandates Sarah and Denny to accept his invitation of visiting his villa in Turkey. Not long after, Sarah and Denny had arrived in Turkey to a warm welcome from Simmons, who was accompanied by his bodyguards. In an effort to save time, Simmons swiftly revealed his entire assemblage of classic cars. With a glimpse of intrigue, Simmons instantly presented the car to Denny and they both quickly entered for an exhilarating test drive. While Sarah, abandoned in the villa, hastily set about executing her scheme to meddle with Simmons' computer. Upon noticing the CCTV camera monitored by Amelia, Simon's assistant, Sarah decided to access it via hacking. Orson and JJ were stunned when they arrived at the location to monitor Qasim's movements, only to find Mike was there too, keeping an eye on him. Upon completing her hack of the CCTV, Sarah sprung into action and swiftly began probing Simon's computer for pertinent information. Intent on keeping tabs on Ben Harris, Orson surreptitiously trailed him. Sarah quickly found out and promptly informed Nathan that Simmons had purchased the very AK-47 stolen at the start of the movie. Upon hearing the news, Nathan appeared crestfallen, for it was not Simmons who had purchased the AI weapon they sought. Nathan was certain that the wrong person had been accused and asked Orson to come back, yet Orson remained unwavering in his conviction that Simmons played a role. As such, he chose to discreetly continue tracking Ben Harris. Ben Harris, recognizing this information, promptly notified Simmons. Of course, as J.J had tapped Ben's phone line and was already aware of the news themselves, they informed Orson that Harris knew too. J.J instructed Orson to act upon Ben Harris's request for additional troops from Simmons. With no hesitation, Orson charged and took down Ben Harris's guard effortlessly. Desperate to evade capture, Ben Harris seized a motorbike and raced away. With JJ's assistance, Orson took the quickest route in pursuit of him. Unfortunately, Ben Harris was able to outwit Orson by scaling the building. Since he didn't have access to the structure, Orson had no choice but to pursue him through the stairs. Ben Harris had a creative idea to fool Orson. He feigned asking for assistance in getting photographed, and then slyly tucked his phone into the individual's pocket. But when Orson reached his destination, there was not a trace of Ben Harris to be found, despite the coordinates being spot on. Orson was bewildered until he glanced downward and saw the unexpected sight of a body at his feet. Sure enough, it belonged to the individual that Ben Harris had just pushed off the cliff. Startled, Orson was about to be shoved from behind by Ben Harris. Thankfully, his quick reflexes allowed him to evade the attack with ease. JJ frantically hastened to retrieve Ben Harris's body, then quickly drove back. At the headquarters, Knighton told them that if Sarah's transmission from Simmons' computer was accurate and true, they had their answer. The consequences of a Cochrane hard drive transaction triggering an AI weapon capable of launching a nuclear strike are dire. The perpetrator would remain undetected. Make no mistake, this is not something to be taken lightly. Despite that, the individual who acquired the hard drive had never seen Ben Harris in person due to their transaction being conducted only via voicemail. Realizing Ben Harris had perished, Orson decided to masquerade himself as the deceased in order to prevent criminals from destroying the planet and bring back peace and order. Orson requested Sarah's assistance to modify his voice so that it mimicked Ben Harris's when he was going to phone Simmons. After meticulously organizing his plans, Orson quickly encountered the purchaser of the hard drive. At the time, Sarah ingeniously modified Orson's voice to sound like Ben Harris over the phone in order to protect him from being identified and immediately taken away during their mission. Unaware of Ben Harris's demise, Simmons appeared calm and asked excuse for a moment to contact the deceased in order to progress the transaction. JJ, who had been trailing the group from behind, quickly dropped to shield Orson with a sniper rifle. When they reached the meeting point, Orson was surprised to see that his buyer's name was Sergey. Without delay, he opened up the hard drive case and requested for Orson to enter in its 15-digit passcode. With Sarah's assistance, Orson managed to fool Simmons into giving him the code. Sure enough, his plan worked. At that point, Simmons' protectors became aware of someone eavesdropping on their employer's discourse. After inputting the 15 codes from Simmons, their team was able to complete a $10 million transaction with success. In the far-off distance, one of Alex's men suddenly realized that Orson was actually the same person who had broken into his house a few nights before. Before they could get their hands on Orson, JJ swiftly took action and launched an aggressive counterattack that resulted in a fierce shootout. Sarah, having swiftly terminated the transaction, quickly fled with Denny. Orson was recklessly pursued by one of the helicopters, and when he found himself in a dead end, it became clear that they were Mike's men. Mike and his team mercilessly murdered Sergei and his cohorts, seizing their AI weapons in the process. Before Mike could order Orson's execution, JJ once more intervened and saved him from harm. Simmons quickly realized Sarah was the hacker and commanded his bodyguards to capture her and Denny before it was too late. Utilizing her remarkable marksmanship, Sarah managed to take out one of Simon's guard cars. With ammunition exhausted, the only option left was to retreat. Orson and JJ valiantly attempted to rescue Sarah via helicopter in a last-ditch effort. Upon spotting Sarah in the tunnel, Orson chased after them and launched missiles at their adversary. After learning from the authorities that Mike had no ties to any government, Nathan jumped to the conclusion that he was concocting something sinister. Upon hearing that, Orson finally saw an opportunity to leverage all the evidence of Simon's crime and proposed a deal to Simon to cooperate with them. Initially, the team was full of skepticism and doubt. However, Orson managed to persuade them and soon returned to Simon's base. As soon as he arrived, Orson quickly proposed negotiations for Simons to assist in the pursuit of retrieving the artificial intelligence weapons. Initially, Simon refused Denny's request for assistance. However, after a bit of persuasion he conceded and decided to assist. As night fell, Simons revealed to Mike who he planned to sell his artificial intelligence weapons to. Meanwhile, Orson, JJ, and Sarah acted on the opposing side of this clandestine mission. Sarah leveraged the power of a drone to disrupt and confuse the guards, giving Orson and JJ enough time to incapacitate them all at once. Upon entering the room, Mike was discovered to have sold a weapon to Trent and Arnold. Simon's business partners were exposed for purchasing the charity event, intending to cause upheaval worldwide by demolishing all currency. In their wake would be chaos and anarchy. As Simons lost focus, Orson and JJ stealthily slaughtered all of Mike's men with remarkable speed. To expedite the process further, Orson hopped into a car during the massacre. After Orson decimated the guards outside, he stormed into the building and wiped out each of Mike's remaining cohorts. Confused as to what Simons was trying to convey, they all resorted to violence and fought each other. After Orson successfully routed Mike's forces, he quickly stepped into the haggling chamber. To Orson's shock, he discovered that every person was deceased upon his arrival. As Orson was preparing to wield the AI weapon, Mike unexpectedly ambushed him from behind. Despite being unable to fight traditionally, he took on Orson with surprising ferocity and managed to hold his own despite the odds stacked against him. After triumphing in the battle, Orson emerged and was collected by JJ and Sarah. The following morning they flew to Doha, Qatar to deliver the AI weapon to Nathan. After the mission's success,